The automatic doors of the Grand Elysian Hotel slid open with a soft whisper, welcoming a swirl of city air and footsteps that didn't quite match the marble floors. A tall black man stepped inside. His hoodie was faded at the sleeves. His jeans were creased from travel. A worn canvas backpack hung from one shoulder, and his sneakers carried the dust of distance. The lobby was pristine, crystal chandeliers above, gold accents on every column, and guests dressed in tailored coats sipping imported coffee. Conversations echoed in polished tones. At the reception desk, a young woman with flawless makeup and a stiff bun glanced up from her computer. Her eyes hesitated as they scanned the man approaching. She plastered on a smile, the kind that tried to be polite but couldn't hide the edge. "Good afternoon," she said crisply. "Can I help you?" The man returned a calm nod. "Yes," he said. "I'd like to book your presidential suite. For 1 week." She blinked. "What?" Then twice. "The presidential suite?" She repeated as if she hadn't heard correctly. "Yes." He didn't elaborate. He didn't smile. He didn't seem nervous. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then slowly moved. "Sir, that suite is currently available, but it's more than $8,000 a night." "I know." He reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a sleek black credit card. It was matte, metal, and unmistakable. He placed it gently on the counter between them. The receptionist didn't touch it. Instead, her lips twitched with something between doubt and amusement. "I'm not sure this card will process a transaction of that size," she said, lowering her voice just enough to sound discreet while still letting nearby guests hear. The man said nothing. He didn't move his hand, didn't withdraw the card. Her smile shrank. "If you'd like, I can show you one of our standard suites. We have something comfortable on the 7th floor. Much more affordable." He looked at her now, eyes steady. "I said presidential." Something in his tone silenced the next words in her mouth. But only for a second. Then, with a well-rehearsed sigh, she picked up the card and turned toward the screen. Behind her, another receptionist leaned over and whispered something. A quiet giggle followed. The woman didn't hide her smirk this time. She tapped the keyboard, slowly, deliberately. And at the same time, sent a message to her supervisor. "Suspicious guest at the front desk. Might be a fraud." The lobby remained busy, unaware of the quiet tension blooming behind the counter. But the bellboy near the wall paused in his steps. He had seen that look before, and he kept watching. The man waited silently. His card remained untouched beside the terminal. The receptionist finally slid the card into the reader. Her manicured fingers moved with exaggerated caution, as if the machine might spark. As the system processed, she glanced back up at the man with a practiced look of pity. "It may take a while to go through," she said sweetly. "Sometimes these cards have unusual limits." The man remained still. He didn't blink, didn't flinch. The reader beeped once, then confirmed the charge. "Proved." Her smile faltered for the briefest second. She tapped again, pretending to double-check. Then she leaned toward her colleague, whispering something that made the other woman cover her mouth to stifle a laugh. Still, she turned back to the man. "Would you like someone to help with your bags?" she asked, her voice overly cheerful now, compensating. "Or perhaps, I can show you to a suite that might be more comfortable, considering your stay?" The man's gaze didn't move from her eyes. "I asked for the presidential suite." A silence settled between them like a storm cloud. She cleared her throat. "Of course. I'll just need a moment to confirm with the manager on duty." She didn't wait for his reply. Instead, she turned sharply and walked through a frosted glass door behind the desk, her heels clicking in tight little bursts across the floor. Left alone, the man remained by the counter. Around him, guests continued to pass, but some slowed down, eyes drawn to the contrast. The man's worn clothes against the polished marble, his quiet presence against the lobby's luxurious shine. From across the room, the bellboy hesitated, then began walking toward the reception desk. He was no more than 20, wiry and wide-eyed, with a uniform slightly too big for his frame. He stopped just short of the desk and whispered, "Sir, would you like a bottle of water while you wait?" The man turned to him. His face softened. "What's your name?" "Eli," the boy said. "Eli Thompson." "Thank you, Eli," the man said. "You're the first person here who's spoken to me without pretending." Eli looked down, unsure how to respond. Just then, the frosted door swung open again. The receptionist had returned, and this time she wasn't smiling. Behind her, a man in a dark suit followed. Not the shift manager. Not security. Someone far higher. The general manager. He had a golden pin on his lapel and a calmness that made everyone nearby straighten unconsciously. He glanced at the receptionist, then at the man she had tried to dismiss, and his face changed, instantly. "Sir," he said, stepping forward quickly, "we weren't expecting you so early. My deepest apologies for the delay." The receptionist went pale. The bellboy took a step back, and the man at the counter, Mr. Hamilton, simply tilted his head. "I believe," he said quietly, "my suite is ready now." The general manager stepped around the desk and extended his hand with both urgency and care. "Mr. Hamilton, allow me to personally escort you to the suite." The receptionist blinked, her mouth slightly open, caught between confusion and dread. She turned slowly toward the general manager, lips parting. "I didn't know." But the manager didn't even glance at her. Mr. Hamilton, still calm, looked at the bellboy. "Eli," he said, "would you mind carrying my bag?" Eli stepped forward without hesitation. "Of course, sir." The canvas backpack was light, but the moment Eli picked it up, it felt like it carried more than just weight. It carried truth, the kind that made everything else feel smaller. As they moved toward the elevators, the general manager kept speaking. "Your usual suite has been prepared, just as requested. I had the terrace flowers rotated this morning and the piano tuned last week as per your preferences." Mr. Hamilton nodded. "Thank you." Guests watched as they passed. Some stared, recognizing the sudden shift in energy. Others whispered, wondering who he really was. The man who looked too casual for this place. Too quiet. Too still. The elevator chimed. Its doors opened like gates revealing another world. As they entered, Mr. Hamilton finally turned to the general manager. "Has the board received the quarterly report?" "Yes, sir. And your office will be ready by morning. The suite has been equipped with all the files you requested." "Good." Just before the doors closed, Mr. Hamilton looked back through the gap in the elevator. His eyes met the receptionist. She hadn't moved. Her hand hovered awkwardly near the terminal as if frozen mid-task. She looked like she had just watched her entire job fold in on itself. The doors shut with a soft click. Inside the elevator, Eli tried not to stare. But curiosity eventually slipped past his lips. "Sir," he said softly, "are you really on the board?" Mr. Hamilton smiled slightly. "No, Eli." The boy blinked. "I own it." Eli's mouth opened, but no words came. Mr. Hamilton looked ahead. He didn't need to say more. Back in the lobby, the air had shifted. The receptionist stood behind the counter, her skin pale, hands clasped tightly in front of her. Her colleague beside her had gone silent, pretending to read something on the screen. No one dared to look directly at her. A low buzz filled the space. Soft conversations, gasps, the clinking of glasses at the bar as people whispered about the man who had just disappeared into the elevator. In her mind, the receptionist replayed the moment over and over. The hoodie, the tone of his voice, the black card, the name, Hamilton. She had heard it before. It was etched on every plaque in the executive conference rooms, engraved into the penthouse keycards, printed on the highest level correspondence from corporate. She had seen it in emails, press releases, and even on the holiday wine sent to top investors. But she had never imagined he looked like that. Her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of the shift supervisor, who had just returned from a late lunch. He scanned the lobby, saw her stiff posture, and walked over. "What happened?" She didn't speak right away. Then quietly she said, "A man booked the presidential suite." The supervisor raised an eyebrow. "Okay." She swallowed hard. It was William Hamilton. The supervisor frowned. "The William Hamilton?" She nodded. "I didn't recognize him," she admitted. "I thought he was just some guy trying to act rich." The supervisor stared at her, then shook his head slowly. "You mean the man who owns the largest stake in the Elysian Group? The one who built this brand from the ground up? You treated him like that?" "I didn't know," she whispered. "That doesn't matter," he said. "You should have treated everyone better." Her silence was louder than the lobby. The supervisor exhaled and looked toward the elevator, as if hoping Mr. Hamilton had somehow not noticed. But deep down they both knew he had. Upstairs, the suite door opened with a soft electronic click. Marble floors greeted them, followed by floor-to-ceiling windows framing the skyline like a painting. Eli set the backpack down gently, his eyes wide at the sheer size of the place. Mr. Hamilton walked in slowly, glancing at the piano, the bookshelves, the fresh orchids on the table. Everything was just as he had left it. Still, something in his expression had changed. He walked over to the bar, poured a glass of water, and stood silently looking out at the city. Eli waited, unsure if he should leave. But Mr. Hamilton spoke. "Most people," he said, "only see value in what they understand." He turned slowly toward Eli. "And they don't understand men like me until it's too late." The sun dipped lower behind the skyline, casting golden light into the penthouse suite. Mr. Hamilton stood still by the window, his glass untouched. Eli waited respectfully near the door, unsure if he should speak or quietly slip away. "You can sit," Mr. Hamilton said without looking. Eli found a chair near the wall and lowered himself carefully, eyes still wide from the sheer elegance of the suite. His mind spun with questions, but none of them made it to his lips. Mr. Hamilton finally spoke again. "Do you enjoy your job, Eli?" The boy blinked. "Yes, sir. I do. It's not easy, but I'm learning. I just started a few months ago." Mr. Hamilton nodded. "You treated me with kindness before you knew who I was," he said. "That matters more than anything else in this building." Eli's throat tightened. "I just figured you were tired. And nobody deserves to be treated like that." Mr. Hamilton finally smiled, faint and fleeting. Downstairs, the receptionist sat at her terminal, trying to compose an email. Her hands shook as she typed. To Executive Office. Subject: Sincere apology regarding Mr. Hamilton's visit. She stared at the blinking cursor. No words came. Everything she wanted to say felt too small. "I'm sorry I misjudged you. I thought you were someone else. I didn't think someone like you could own all this." She backspaced each attempt. Then she closed the draft entirely. Across the lobby, the shift supervisor approached the front desk again. He had just gotten off the phone. "I've been asked to schedule a private meeting with you," he said flatly. She looked up, startled. "With who?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The tone in his voice said everything. Upstairs, Mr. Hamilton placed his glass down on the bar and turned back to Eli. "Let me ask you something," he said. "Have you ever been made to feel like you don't belong?" Eli hesitated, then nodded. "Every week," he said quietly. Mr. Hamilton nodded in return. "Good," he said. "Because one day that feeling is going to remind you never to treat anyone else the same way." He walked across the suite and pulled out a leather folder from the desk. Inside was a set of documents, property investments, board meeting minutes, and a memo about the upcoming restructuring of senior management. His name was at the top of every page. Hamilton Holdings, majority shareholder. He slid the folder shut. Downstairs, the receptionist's screen blinked again. "Mr. Hamilton has requested to speak with you in the morning." Her hands slowly slid away from the keyboard. Eli, still seated, watched Mr. Hamilton with a mix of fear and admiration. "Are you going to fire her?" he asked softly. Mr. Hamilton looked at him. And after a long pause, he said, "Not yet." Morning light spilled into the Grand Elysian's executive lounge, where only top-level meetings were held. The long glass table gleamed beneath overhead lights, surrounded by high-backed leather chairs. At the head of the table sat Mr. Hamilton. He was dressed in a crisp gray suit, no tie, collar open, eyes steady. Before him, a single sheet of paper. No assistants. No distractions. The door opened and the receptionist stepped in. She looked different now. No makeup. Hair pulled back simply. Uniform perfectly ironed, but her confidence was gone. She clutched a small notebook to her chest like a shield. "Come in," Mr. Hamilton said. She obeyed. He gestured for her to sit. She did, carefully, as if unsure the chair would accept her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, without looking at her, he asked, "Do you remember what you said to me yesterday?" She swallowed. "Yes, sir." "Repeat it." She hesitated, voice low. "I said, the presidential suite costs over $8,000 a night. And," she took a breath, "that I wasn't sure my card would go through." He finally looked at her. Not angry, just observant. "And why did you say that?" "I thought," her voice cracked. "I assumed you weren't someone who could afford it." He nodded slowly. "Do you know what this hotel was built on?" She didn't answer. "Dignity," he said. "From the first floor to the penthouse. It wasn't luxury that made this place what it is. It was how we made people feel when they walked through those doors." Her eyes dropped to the table. "I know," she whispered. "No," he said. "You don't. Silence settled like frost. Then he slid the paper across the table toward her. It wasn't a termination letter. It wasn't a warning. It was a transfer request. She blinked. "You'll be reassigned to our Midtown property," he said. "Smaller, quieter. You'll work under direct supervision. And you'll undergo training again." She stared at the paper. Her lip trembled. "You're not firing me?" "No." "Why?" He leaned back in his chair. "Because your mistake wasn't final. But the way you learn from it will be." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Thank you." "I'm not doing you a favor," he replied. "You are." He stood, ending the meeting with finality. She rose, nodding, then walked toward the door with the paper clutched in her hands. Outside, the general manager waited. She stepped into the hallway, breathing deeper than she had in hours. Back upstairs in the penthouse suite, Eli knocked once before entering. Mr. Hamilton turned from the window. "Everything's packed, sir," Eli said. "Your car's ready." Mr. Hamilton picked up his bag, the same worn canvas one he had arrived with. He gave the room one last glance. "I assume you're off duty now?" Eli nodded. "I'll walk you down," Mr. Hamilton said. The elevator ride was quiet. The lobby, as they stepped out, felt lighter than before, more aware. A chauffeur opened the black sedan's rear door. Before getting in, Mr. Hamilton turned to Eli. "You ever thought about working upstairs instead of carrying bags?" Eli blinked. "Upstairs? We need young people who know how to see value before others do." He handed him a card. "Call this number. Ask for me." Then he stepped into the car. As the door closed and the vehicle pulled away, Eli looked down at the card in his hand. It didn't have a title, just a name: William Hamilton. The black sedan turned out of the hotel's private driveway, its tinted windows catching the early sunlight. Inside, Mr. Hamilton sat in silence, watching the city roll past like a quiet memory. His phone buzzed once. A message. Board meeting confirmed. Midtown property restructuring approved. He replied with a single word. Proceed. Then he set the phone aside. Downstairs, Eli remained standing at the edge of the entrance, still holding the card. His fingers brushed over the embossed letters. No company logo. No flashy title. Just that name. He slipped it into his pocket with quiet care, knowing what it meant. Not just a chance, but trust. The kind given by someone who remembered what it felt like to be overlooked. Inside the lobby, guests continued to check in and out. Luggage wheels echoed across the floor. Coffee steamed behind the cafe counter. But everything seemed to move a little differently now. The receptionist returned to the desk, her steps careful, her posture straighter. No more eye rolls. No more smirks. Her greetings were quieter, clearer. She didn't smile unless she meant it. She had looked into a mirror and it had spoken back. Upstairs, the general manager stood in the executive office, reviewing a fresh memo sent by Hamilton Holdings. At the bottom of the message was a short line. Hospitality is not what we build. It's what we carry. He folded the paper and looked out the window. At the edge of the skyline, the sedan carrying Mr. Hamilton disappeared into the morning traffic. He would visit other cities, other hotels. But here in this building, something had changed. Not because of money. Not because of power. But because one man had chosen to walk through the front door like everyone else, and wait. Just long enough for them to show who they really were. And when they did, he never raised his voice. He didn't have to. Because real power never begs to be seen. It just walks in. Moral reflection. Respect has no dress code. In a world driven by appearances, wealth, and status, it's easy, too easy, to believe that value wears a label, that power speaks loudly, and that dignity comes dressed in tailored suits or designer shoes. But what happens when all of that is stripped away? When a man walks into a place he could buy twice over, wearing clothes no different from yours or mine? What happens is a mirror is held up, not to him but to everyone else. This story wasn't about a rich man in disguise. It wasn't about revenge or putting people in their place. No, it was about the quiet power of a man who chose to be underestimated, and what that choice revealed about everyone around him. Let's talk about the receptionist. She did what many people do every day, often without realizing it. She judged. Instantly. Harshly. She looked at a black man in simple clothes and assumed he didn't belong. She didn't ask. She didn't listen. She didn't think for a moment that the person in front of her could be anything more than what he appeared to be. Her smile was fake. Her tone was rehearsed. and her pride was inflated by the belief that she could decide who was worthy and who wasn't. She didn't know she was speaking to the man who signed the paychecks that made her uniform possible. But the truth is, it shouldn't take a fortune or a title to deserve respect. It shouldn't take a boardroom seat or a luxury card for someone to be treated with dignity. The tragedy isn't that she didn't recognize Mr. Hamilton. The tragedy is that she wouldn't have treated him well even if she never found out who he was. That's the heart of it. True character is not how you treat those above you, it's how you treat those you think are below you. And then there was Eli, the bellboy, the young man in the oversized uniform. He didn't have power, he didn't have rank, but he had heart. He saw a tired man at the counter and offered him water, not because he knew who he was, not because he wanted anything in return, but because he understood something that doesn't come with training or money or years on the job. He understood kindness. Eli didn't need a promotion to act human. He didn't need recognition to do what was right. He acted with respect because to him, respect wasn't something you had to earn, it was something you gave by default. And what did that simple act of decency lead to? An invitation, a door opening, a quiet offer from a man who saw in him what the world so often overlooks: potential, patience, and integrity. There's a lesson there too, one that often gets buried in our obsession with success and image. The greatest doors in life don't open with resumes or resumes, but with reputation, with the kind of goodness people remember when no one is watching. Now let's return to Mr. Hamilton. He didn't rage. He didn't expose anyone in public. He didn't need to yell or threaten or flaunt his position. Why? Because real power doesn't perform. Real power doesn't chase validation. Real power is quiet. It watches. It waits. And when the time is right, it speaks not with volume but with weight. Mr. Hamilton didn't come to the hotel to prove a point. He came because it was his. But in that moment, at that front desk, he saw something more important than a mistake. He saw a culture. A mirror of how far people have drifted from what hospitality and humanity are supposed to be. He didn't fire the receptionist out of anger. He gave her something far more uncomfortable: a second chance. Because growth only comes after we're humbled. And sometimes humiliation is a mercy in disguise. It forces us to confront the parts of ourselves we protect the most: our assumptions, our judgments, our quiet prejudices. So what can we take from this story? We live in a world that teaches us to value appearances more than presence, to measure people by income, clothing, skin color, job titles. We scroll, swipe, sort, label, and categorize without asking who someone truly is. But not everyone wears their worth on their wrist. Not everyone shows their story in their shoes. And not everyone who walks through the door owes you an explanation. Some carry their power silently. And some are testing the world not to see how it treats kings, but how it treats strangers. The next time you meet someone new, someone who looks different, speaks differently, walks differently from what you expect, pause. Ask yourself not who they are, but who you are in that moment. Are you kind? Are you curious? Are you respectful, regardless of who stands before you? Because one day, when you least expect it, the man in the hoodie could be the one who owns the building. The woman you overlooked could be the one signing your future contract. And the child you brushed off today could grow up to decide whether you sit at the table or not. Respect is not a reaction. It's a principle. It doesn't belong to titles or suits or wealth. It belongs to those brave enough to give it freely. Let this story remind you, the world sees with its eyes, but what truly matters is seen with the heart. And if you can carry that vision into every room, every lobby, every encounter, then no matter what you wear or where you're from, you will always belong.